Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times. Today to discuss another horror movie, we're here to talk about Candyman.
It's coffee time!
I have always really loved the original movie, especially the first one, and I was curious to see what they were going to do with this so-called spiritual sequel. I've always also loved Tony Todd as the Candyman. I met him a couple of times and he even signed this little thing here for me, and I was a little bit scared going into this movie knowing that there were many things that they were going to change and I didn't know if I was going to like it or not. Now, I'm gonna give you my honest opinion, spoiler free as always, but if you want to know if I loved it or hated it, the answer is neither. Candyman is a 2021 supernatural slasher film directed by Nia Da Costa and written by Jordan Peele, Wynn Rosefeld, and Da Costa herself. The film is a direct sequel to the 1992 film of the same name and the fourth film in the Candyman film series based on the story The Forbidden by Clive Barker. If we're going to talk about the plot of this movie, we have to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this is a movie that has a lot of political and social commentary, and it is basically bringing more awareness to something really important, that is the police brutality against people of color, and also it is addressing, as the first Candyman already did, about the problems with these poor neighborhoods. We are in 2019. We are 27 years after the events of the first film, and we are now following an artist called Anthony, a struggling artist, and one night he gets told the legend of Helen Lyle, a graduate that apparently went on a killing spree in the 90s. So Anthony is struggling with his work, with coming up with new ideas for his paintings, and he's really frustrated. That is until he hears of a legend, and that is the legend of the Candyman. He will go back where it all began to find out more about this legend, about the Candyman. However, he might end up getting too involved during his investigation, and he might be getting way too close to actually finding the Candyman himself. Let's start by saying that this has been actually pitched as a sequel, and even though we do follow some of the characters from the first movie, some of the actors are going to return to this film, which is going to make it, something that the fans of the first movie are going to appreciate. But is it really a proper sequel? I'm not sure. Also, is this a reboot? Not really. So I can see why a lot of people going to watch this film believing that it's just a pure sequel to the very first film might end up getting a little bit disappointed or frustrated. One thing that I would like to tell you is, if you have never watched the original Candyman, you have to before you go into this movie. Not only because it pays homage in many ways and it shows many things that are kind of connected to that first movie, but also because the script in this one is a little bit messy. It's a little bit all over the place. So I think that if you have just watched the original movie, it's gonna be so much easier for you to understand and follow this new movie. Now let's talk about the characters, shall we? So obviously the most important character in this movie is the figure of the Candyman. Unfortunately, it broke my heart a little bit that we got a complete different Candyman. We get the background story of this man from the 70s that has become the Candyman. So if you're going into the movie expecting to see from the very beginning Tony Todd as Candyman, that's not gonna happen for you. And it just broke my heart a little bit because I'm just so used to Tony Todd being the Candyman that it was hard for me to see somebody else playing this role. It also worried me because I didn't know if they were going to be able to connect this story with Daniel Robitel, the original Candyman, but rest assured that in the third act, the movie is going to put a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together and a lot of things are going to be easier to understand. However, it was still sad. Like, it just broke my heart, I just needed Tony Todd there. As for the main characters, I feel like they kind of gave a lot of importance to Anthony, which of course it's one of our main characters, but it just felt like the rest of the cast were just supporting actors for him, and they were there just to give specific speeches at certain moments of the film. There is an effort to give more of a story to his girlfriend and to my favorite character, William, played by Coleman Domingo, but it didn't manage to really connect us with them. There were also in this movie many moments of kind of comical relief, which, you know, I don't mind if done correctly, but I felt like this movie was already struggling with keeping some tension and suspense as it is, so bringing comic relief actually didn't work in its favor either. Another example of how the characters and the victims were not so important apart from Anthony is a scene that could have been easily cut out of the movie and it would not have made a difference at all. It's one of the scenes that you can actually see in the trailer, which is these girls in the bathroom calling the Candyman. So when it comes to the characters, it's a pity because basically they didn't really give so much attention to the characters, so that when somebody died, you didn't really care. Now, if you separate this movie from the original, you have to admit that this is a great movie. The visuals are stunning. I absolutely love the cinematography of this movie, the shots, the angles. When it comes to all of that, this movie is really good. However, it did kind of lack bringing energy to the plot. Everything, the pacing was a little bit weird at times, but there was so much love and attention paid to detail. The color palette resembling, you know, the yellows, some patterns could resemble the bees or the beehives. And there's something in this movie that I absolutely loved personally, which is the attention they paid to mirrors and how they utilize them in their favor throughout the whole movie. Not just mirrors, also reflections in any kind of surface like windows, anything that would reflect. And you can see that actually from the very beginning. The first opening credits, like the first couple of seconds, actually the letters are backwards on the screen, and I thought that was such a great touch because you already start the movie kind of with this mirror image feeling. So there's so many good technicalities that were used in this movie. However, let's go back to talking horror, because unfortunately, like I said here, in this movie we have these situation where who cares about these victims, honestly, and the horror was not really working in the way that it was not scary. Did it have good gore? Yes, it did. Was the movie scary or creepy? No, it wasn't. And I think that is a kind of a missed opportunity. And even though I did enjoy the deaths and the gore being one of my favorite things about this movie, there were many kills that were shown off screen, so basically not shown. And that is so unsatisfying as a horror fan when you know something's gonna happen and then the camera is just not showing it to you. And I was just hoping for those moments to be really brutal deaths, but by not showing them, it completely lost the intensity that they were trying to build up towards that scene. Another thing that I really enjoyed, apart from the gore that we did get to see, is the body horror. The body horror in this movie was excellent, chef's kiss, loved it. And it is body horror that starts like here and it keeps escalating, it keeps getting better and better until the fantastic ending of the movie, which is one of the things that really sold the movie for me, was the ending. The body horror here is something that is going to creep under your skin. You're going to feel itchy, you want to scratch yourself, and it was really uncomfortable to watch at times, which means that they were doing it correctly. So if you love body horror, you probably should give this movie a try. I understand that as a social commentary is really important to show how little things have changed for the Black community in the United States, actually in the whole world, but this movie is based on Chicago, so the United States. But the original Candyman already brought up some of those themes. I think this movie just took the original themes and kind of expanded them, but they might have pushed it just a little bit too far. The movie felt like it was made in order to represent the Black community and so that Black people can see themselves in horror, which is something that it is needed, that I love to see. But on the other hand, it also felt like it was a movie targeted for white people to teach us a lesson, and I don't have anything against that. I think we all have so much to learn about the Black community, about how to be an ally, and I always am happy when I'm getting something to kind of open my eyes to things that I might not be aware of, because obviously I'm a white person, so I do have privileges and I do acknowledge that. And as much as I welcome all of those lines on the scripts that are putting us in an uncomfortable position, which we should be confronted with these things, I felt like this movie had perhaps a couple of lines too many. Based on a story by Clive Barker, who is also responsible for the source material of the Hellraiser films, the film effortlessly blends eroticism with the macabre. The Candyman that we met with Tony Todd was brutal, but he was also seductive, like the way he spoke, the way that he moved. Everything was kind of like with sexual tension in it, to be honest. And sadly, the new Candyman did not have that at all. It just felt more cold to me, more generic of a villain. It didn't have personality, and I don't know, even though there is an explanation why he probably is so generic when you get to the end, it just, something was missing for me. Also, fun fact, in case you didn't notice, in one of the scenes that happens in this laundry store, there is a book of Clive Barker on a desk, and when the moment that I saw that, I was like, what a nerd I am. Probably nobody else has noticed this today in the cinema, so yeah. Is Candyman 2021 going to get a sequel? I don't think so, especially because a lot of people were not fans of the movie, so I don't think they are going to even consider that. However, in the early 2000s, they did wanted to make a prequel based on Candyman and Helen's love story, and sadly that project was shut down, but I kind of wish we would have gotten that. I feel like a lot of villains in horror movies don't get a proper origin story, a prequel story, and it's such a missed opportunity, because even though in horror movies we do get to see a couple of scenes that kind of show how our villain became the villain, what happened to them to make them the way that they are today, I feel like we could actually use some of those like origin Marvel movies, but in horror. At the end of the day, I decided to give this movie a 3.5 out of 5 because it was beautifully shot, the actors were great, they are amazing actors, and even though the script was a little bit messy, and even though the horror didn't always land for me, I still think that this is a really good, solid movie with some interesting shots, and it's also a 90 minutes movie. The ending was my absolute favorite thing about this movie. I think the way they wrapped it all up, the way it all kind of made sense at the end, the things that they showed at the end, that was my favorite thing. So if you have already watched the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about, and the end did redeem a lot of the movie for me, and I kind of forgot about all of that weird pacing and all of those thrills that didn't quite land it. Of course, there are a lot of elements of nostalgia added to this movie, a lot of elements from the original Candyman. The locations, it was shot on the location of the original one, and they show you a church that you recognize from the first movie, so you know, all of those things made me a little bit emotional, not gonna lie. But probably in this spiritual sequel, I think they were trying to tell so many stories in a 90 minutes film, and it didn't quite work so well, but I would still recommend you guys to go and watch it and give it a try and form your own opinion. I know the audience is really divided in this movie, but it is a great movie. The problem is, if you really love the original, there are many changes that you're not gonna love, but I went with an open mind and I ended up enjoying it more than I thought, but I don't love it. As a quick anecdote, when the movie ended, the girl behind me said, "Oh, thank God I made it through the movie," and all I could think of was, I wish they would have shown us more gore on camera. I think that gets to show you the kind of weirdo that I am. Alright, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed the spoiler-free review of Candyman 2021. Let me know down below what you thought about the movie, if you've watched it. Did you also love the original as much as I did? Let's talk about it in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. Please give the video a big thumbs up for support, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!